Hey, Facebook, it is Thursday, and we have an incredible guest. Dr. Michelle Olson is going to talk with us about this idea of nature, aging, outdoors, and give us some new perspective on how we think about how we integrate those two for our older adults. But before then, I want to give a big thank you to Serenity Engage, the HIPAA compliant app. So stick with us as we show a short little video on the benefits of Serenity. And we're back, and I wish I could come up with something more creative to introduce Catherine, but instead I am going to say it is the creative one, the inspiring one, Catherine Wells.
Well, at least you tried.
I
tried.
did.
And my kids all say, #you tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm learning their speak, I guess. So great to see everybody today. If you're joining us live, as always, please ask your questions, share your comments and your ideas. We have Michelle here. We're really excited to talk to. We had Michelle on our show 7 months ago, a little over 7 months ago, and that was at the very beginning of COVID.
It's been that long, 7 months of COVID.
It's been a long time, and we brought Michelle on at that time because she really was speaking our language around COVID is an opportunity. We can't go back to the way it was. And I want to say, Michelle, and I'll have you introduce yourself in a moment, but I really do think that we have come a long way in those 7 months. Yes, there are some things that we're still struggling with, but in those 7 months, I have seen some big shifts in this industry, and I'm glad to see that. And I think some of that is related to the work that we're all doing. So welcome to the show for the second time.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm so happy to be here with both y'all. Always so much fun. Pleasure.
Oh, there you go with y'all. See, I thought you were from the South, but you're not. So now I know.
I wanted the girl.
No. So Michelle, tell our audience a little bit about who you are.
So I am a gerontologist, but I didn't start off that way. So I started off coming into the field through art therapy. So that's how I kind of led into eldercare, was through art therapy. And then I went into recreation. So I was an activity leader for many years, a director of recreation and a corporate director of recreation. So that's really my love, is, kind of implementing creative ideas and programs for people living in particularly long-term care. That's my passion. So I became a gerontologist because I wasn't in love with everything that I was seeing. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to help kind of create some change, especially around the areas of person-centered care, right? And giving people more choice in their daily lives. So that's actually why I became a gerontologist. So I'm also a huge nature lover. So that's kind of how all of these things come together. And
I think some of my favorite posts on social media, and I'm not big on social media. I don't spend a lot of time on there, but I always see your posts, Michelle, and they're some of my favorites because it's often Michelle out in nature, and just sharing some wisdom or sharing some thought-provoking thing or questions for us to be thinking about. And it really impacts my day. So I want to say thank you for the work that you do there.
Thank you. And you're welcome. And I think part of who I am too, it was kind of by accident, but I want to say thankfully it was by accident. I kind of was led to mindfulness through nature over 20 years ago. So I was going through emotionally a really difficult time. Yeah. And so I kind of stumbled into it, and I got this message from nature, and that was it. Like, then I just started to really pay attention and focus on my senses and focus on my surroundings. And that's kind of how it happened.
And I love that. And this is going to be a great question we have right out the bat from Melinda. So I got to get it up. So Melinda wants to know what Dr. Olson should do. What do you got for us, Doctor?
Thank you, Melinda.
Reforming ageist.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
I think that's a great
collectively, everybody. Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. So can you talk a little bit? I mean, we had a little brief talk before we get on the show, but what does that mean? Like, a lot of people here, we throw that term around, ageism, ageist, right? And and I think sometimes it's almost just thrown out there, right? I want to really know, what does it mean, and what can we do about it?
Well, ageism, it's pretty deep. I mean, there's different types of ageism. So like on the broad level, right, there's ageist jokes and ageist media and
Okay.
you see the ageist birthday cards and commercials and so forth, but ageism can also go deeper, right?
Okay.
It's inside of each of us, and that's internalized ageism. So for instance, Kathy and I were just talking about a comment that she made to herself. So if I said something like, oh, I'm too old to look, y'all, I'm too old to put purple in my hair. I'm 51.
Okay, yeah.
Dress like that. I really need to, do this, or I need to do that because of my age. Anytime you're putting something because of an age, and it can go for younger people too, it's ageism. So internalized ageism is a little harder to spot. And so this term, reforming ageist, is something that I was talking about with our president, Aaron Partridge, and I was like, here's something I'm thinking about. She's like, that's great, let's make a shirt. So the idea is we are all ageist. We're all raised in this culture, right? This youth-loving culture. We resist age. We resist getting older because it equates to dying. Like we have all these thoughts about aging. So this just kind of says, you know what? I'm a work in progress.
I love that, because I was on a call with a friend who's older than I am, and he had to go get a colonoscopy, and he was like, "Oh, don't get old. It's terrible." And I said, I said, well, let's flip the script on that. Let's look at that. You have the opportunity to get a colonoscopy because there are many people that don't see the age of 60. So think about all the things that you're able to do and been able to do. And that's really how I've started to look at it more recently, is why do we have such a negative term with these these experiences that we have as we age, whether it's a doctor or whatever, right? We should look at it as an honor, because there are many people who don't get to see that age or that number or have that life, or they've had something that has held them back because of, maybe an early diagnosis of something, right? So let's look at aging, that we can have more time to share, to pass on our legacies, to share our knowledge with those that are coming up. And that's what I want to get it back to, is that benefit of that communal sharing of knowledge.
Right. I love that. And I love that shifting. Yeah. And the other thing you touched on, which is really important, is ageism in healthcare. It's a problem. And it's a big problem in eldercare. So
it's a terrible problem in eldercare. We segregate. You hit a certain age, you're just boom. I mean, you're there. It's like, what? Like, I mean, I don't know. It just, if we did that with like younger people, I don't know. It would, like, people that are not that in that age, whatever age you want to set for that, and we thought it was okay to put. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I just don't get why we think of it as that's the solution we've created.
Right, and it is detrimental to our health, right? And so that's why I was kind of lecturing Kathy, which I have the right to do, by the way. I did.
That's okay. That's all good.
Can we talk a little bit about what does that do for the health of it?
Yeah.
Like, why does that have an impact on our health?
Well, I mean, there is research, and Becca Levy, if anybody's interested, she's a longtime researcher on this topic of ageism and embodying kind of these stereotypes, these negative stereotypes. And it is shown that having that negative self-perception of aging and the negative thoughts, that does impact our health and our longevity, which is pretty sad. In fact, 7 years. So like, it's
what?
Wait, 7 years?
Wow.
So think about this. So all those times you're like, oh, I'm having a senior moment. Like all those little internalized beliefs, they add up. Like we want to just recognize them, right? This is where mindfulness comes in. We want to recognize them and say, you know what, that was ageist. Let it go. And then reframe it. Just like you said, Francis, kind of flip that script.
Interesting.
That's really powerful, because we tend to do that just as human beings. When I was, both my parents passed last year, and I was calling friends of theirs to let them know. And one of my dad's best friends said to me, Kathy, these golden years sure are rusty. And I thought, oh, that's so sad. Just so sad to think that way. And I was telling you earlier, Michelle, before we went live, that my brothers and I always said that my dad decided at a certain age that he was old. And from that point forward, we could see the shift in him. And it was very, very much in his mind. His body was not great, but he did have a life and he was doing things. And then he decided he was old, and it all changed.
Kathy, when he thought that, did he also see a physical change as well too, along with that mental? Like, did things kind of accelerate because he's like, I can't do X, Y, or Z?
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah. He ended up in the recliner watching TV most of the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really, I think it's fascinating that and I didn't know that, Michelle, that there was actually a physical, it makes sense now that you say it. It's like, could have had a V8, right? Did I just do a commercial for V8?
You did.
Maybe they'll send us some. I don't know. It's something that is so obvious once you do that it's hard not to see it. Now I will be paying very close attention.
I will too, because that 7 years is a lot. I mean, that's a big number.
I want to live a long time.
Right. And feel good about aging, right? Because aging is living, as we've said, and it's there's nothing wrong with growing older.
Why can't we frame it to be exciting, to be I don't understand why we have to look at all these things that we have to do as not an honor to be able to do those. Like I said, it goes back to flipping that script of let's cherish the things that we can do, good or bad, right? I mean, we have opportunities that some people don't. And that's what I want people to take away. So if anybody's listening, you want an action, think of shifting your mindset that you have an opportunity to do these things, not a burden. So, and look at sharing that experience and how you reframe that experience, and take what Dr. Olson says about the mindfulness. I think that's a great segue into kind of what is Evergreen Minds. I mean, how do we use this mindfulness to kind of shift that thought or that thinking?
Right. And thank you. And it is all kind of related because it does have a lot to do with ageism. And we were talking about design of buildings. So Evergreen Minds is something that I dreamed about for a long time. And it is a brand new not-for-profit. We are a 501c3 here in New York. And I consider it to be more of a philosophy and really dementia care. That's kind of what I consider it. So nature-based dementia care. So what we do right now in this COVID time is we are offering very small, very, very small, free public groups out into natural spaces where we, people who are living with dementia and their loved one or their care partner, that we get together and we connect through our senses with nature. It might look like visual art with natural materials. It might look like drumming, poetry, and story sharing. The other day, I was with some ladies on the riverbank, and we looked at ducks and we spread milkweed seeds. And it's a very mindful moment, and just to slow down and appreciate the beauty in these little moments. And that's really what Evergreen Minds is about, is this engagement with nature, with one another, with ourselves. And I might be rushing ahead here, but
no, you're good. No, this is perfect. I mean, this is fantastic. This goes back to the mind, the importance of that mind and mindfulness of just mind body. Yeah.
Right. And so really it came to be because of my experience in working in long-term care homes, and the environments are not really conducive to this easy access to nature. So I remember, running activities where I would do a lot of things outdoors, but it's hard work. And I know my recreation therapist on here, they'll step in too and say it isn't easy because the living space is so far away, and we get fresh air and sunlight anytime we want it. And so there's a problem. We know there's a lot of health benefits, which we could talk about, to being in natural space, and we're not taking advantage of them. So we're keeping people inside, and if you have dementia, very often you're even more disconnected, usually locked behind a door. And so that's kind of how Evergreen Minds came to be. Is I really wanted to help provide opportunities for people to kind of change the narrative around how we create living spaces, how we interact with nature, and take advantage of these health benefits, these physiological and psychological health benefits of being outside.
So important. And when I look at what families ask us, when in my other business, when families talk to us, one of the things they share frequently is they love to see photos of their loved one outside.
Yep.
Because it just brightens their day, because we know innately that is something that brings joy, that gives the vitamin D from the sunlight, all of the physiological benefits that we enjoy. We can almost feel that for our loved one when we see a photo of them outside. Melinda has another comment on here. Asian cultures look at their elders as a great source of knowledge. And I know that that is true. Thank you so much, Michelle. And did you, Michelle, I'm sorry, Melinda. Yep. So Michelle, what do you know about the Asian culture? Did you do some research on that as well as part of this?
Right. So that is, while I'm not Buddhist, I definitely have a love for Buddhism and have been a kind of a follower for many, many years. And so there is a Japanese tradition called Shinrin Yoku, which when you translate it is forest bathing. And so that is what Evergreen Minds is pretty much founded on. And if you want just a little snippet of what that is.
Yeah, please. I'm very curious.
Yeah, me too.
When any of us go out into the woods, right? If you like that, not now acknowledging not everybody likes this, and that's okay. But when we're out in the woods, there is this sense of peace and calm that comes over us.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's not actively hiking, through the woods. It's naturally kind of gently walking through the woods and really connecting with our surroundings. And so there are these beautiful little chemicals that are given off called phytoncides that are given off by trees and plants, and even I've heard fruits and vegetables, but particularly like evergreen trees. And so these chemicals are in the trees to prevent them from predators like bugs and bacteria, germs. And so we're breathing that in. So if we think about it, we're breathing in those essential oils, those chemicals, and it acts as a defense mechanism against disease. So we are seeing with Shinrin Yoku, right? This is, if you look at the research, there is improved sleep, decreased stress, depression, anxiety, and who isn't feeling that right now, right? Oh my goodness. Inflammation. So, what else? Lowered blood sugar. So there's so many benefits to being in natural spaces that we can apply to senior living. And so that's my question and my challenge is, why aren't we using, sunlight, which is also proven to benefit cognition? And why aren't we using them? We're good at medicalizing, illness and dis-ease. But
yeah, that's a really good question, Michelle. And we actually were talking before we went live also about an article that came out in Senior Housing News yesterday, where they talked about the fact that there's an uptick in antidepressants being prescribed right now. And that just breaks my heart because it's so unnecessary. How have you talked to some of the senior living providers about why are we not doing this? What are you learning about what the obstacle is?
Well, the obstacle is I don't have time. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And now I should say I know plenty of activity people who are doing the best they can. Of course they are. They're trying to get people out, especially with COVID. You can only take a couple people out at a time, and it's fine. But I'm thinking bigger, so everybody should have that option. Everybody in the place. Would you like to get outside and get some fresh air today? But right now it's not really even an option because staff are really doing the best they can. So how about we get some volunteers in there, because it should be an option. I don't know about y'all, but if I was stuck inside for 8 months and maybe once or twice or whatever it is, got outside, I wouldn't be well.
No.
And you're 100% correct, because we make it a point for a lot of our residents. We work with a lot of those living with dementia that we go for walks daily with maybe 1-on-2. So one caregiver, two staff members. And it does help. It really does help, because a lot of times we get residents that have either been at home or they're more restricted because they can't get out and walk. But when they do, they're less anxious in the evening hours. They feel like they've accomplished something. There's just an overall benefit. And the staff gets to spend some more personal time with them to learn a little bit more or learn more about them. And for those that are in wheelchairs, you can do the same thing. You can push them in the wheelchair or encourage them with a four-wheel, whatever you need to do, or sit with them on the back patio and play a card game, or do your activities outside in your small groups, right? Get creative with using your spaces, that it also brings joy to the staff too, right? Because we can do both. We can have fun and provide a great environment for older adults.
Right. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not impossible. right? And that's the difference.
I want to go to what you said, Michelle, about the obstacle being, I don't have time. And when you said that, you were speaking from the senior housing provider's perspective. I don't have time. I can't. I just, my house is on fire back here with COVID, right? I got to take care of that. I just don't have time to do all this. And even pre-COVID, I think there was some of we just don't have time. And one of the things that I'm learning to ask is, why don't you have time? Let's drill into that. What are you spending your time on? Is that the most important thing? What are the things that are going to bring the highest quality of life to your loved ones? And, we're here to shake up the industry a little bit. We're not here to go status quo because status quo isn't working. And Francis, you'll love this. There's a book that Francis and I have been reading have read that's called Switch.
Oh, yeah. I've read it twice, I think.
Yeah. And it's an amazing book because it's all about making change when change is hard. Mm-hmm. And then there's a follow-up book to it called Upstream. And in Upstream, they talk about the idea that every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. And our systems are perfectly designed to get the results we're getting today. That's because they were designed years ago. It's time. It's just time. We're not saying people are bad people. This isn't a people problem most of the time. It is
I don't think it
very much a systems problem. Yeah. And we can affect that. And every little thing we do impacts everybody. It's not just the resident. It is, as you said, the staff. It's the providers, it's everyone surrounding, the family members, everyone surrounding that loved one is impacted.
And let's take, I want to sneak in a little bit of an action item right here. Michelle, would something as simply bringing in more live plants or some of those live trees into the building, does that have a value or a benefit to the residents? Or does it really need to be this grandiose idea that we're in the woods and we got to do whatever? You know what I'm saying? Like this big grandiose idea, or can we start small? Can we get some of these more things easier accessible?
Okay, so that is such a good question because there are benefits to looking at nature. Like even looking at it out your window is helpful, which in itself, a lot of people in aged care don't even have that. Particularly, in some of these other places where people living with dementia aren't placed, they can't even see nature, which is an issue. So yes, there are benefits. Putting your hands in the dirt, the soil, there is actual benefits to touching soil, physiological benefits to that. So that's good. But with Evergreen Minds, I'm really kind of hell bent on getting people out. Like there's no substitute for fresh air. And I know there's a lot of creativity with, some of these designs where people create villages inside, but I'm very outspoken about that. Like, I appreciate the thoughtfulness, but it's not, you can't die.
Do you think it's almost a little Truman Showish? I mean, some of those, I've heard that thrown around, the Truman Showish, when you start creating this faux environment inside, it kind of, I don't know. I've heard that name thrown around a few times because, about the Truman Showish.
I hadn't heard that, but something just struck me, Michelle, about what you said too, and then your comment there, Francis, that there's so much creativity put into making this look like it's outside.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even think about the way you said that.
Creativity to actually get them outside.
Yeah. And that's our thing. It's like try, in kind of our slogan, try nature first. So before
I love that.
Love it.
Try nature first. So before you offer an artificial dog, try a real dog. Before you go and put in, fake plants and a fake clouds on the murals in the ceiling, how about you go outside and let's observe and take it in and see what we notice about those clouds or the way that the trees and the leaves.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Great.
Try it first before popping that anti-anxiety pill. Let's just mindfulness on the backyard, and take the bus, get a couple people, take them to the woods. I'm not saying, like Francis said, wheels move, and that kills me too. That ageist idea of like, oh my gosh, I talked to this woman. I know she's not listening. She runs an adult day center, and she was inquiring about Evergreen Minds and if I could come and do a program. And I was doing a woodland program right next door to where this adult day center is, right? And so I invited her. I said, please, come. We physically distance. It's a very small group. It's very flat. so there's not a lot of walking, and I will have chairs. She said, well, my people can't do that. My people, first of all, my people can't do that. They have dementia. And I'm like, it made no sense. And so she proceeded to tell me that they wouldn't be able to follow along with these mindfulness, kind of prompts that I was giving. And I was like, well, why would you say that? What makes you think that they can't follow?
Right.
We're kind of imposing what we were talking about before. We're imposing these limitations without even providing an opportunity.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
That brings me up to a kind of a question that I think is important about this is, when did we put our older adults in these bubbles? Because we run in, like we have, I'm a big believer of movement just in general, right? Of not restricting movement if we can, especially with those living with dementia. If they want to get up and move, we need to let them do it and encourage them to do that. But we have this concern, I feel like, with a lot of facilities about falls or hurting themselves again, I want to preface, we need to keep the safety element in mind, but we can't just put people in these little protective bubbles and expect nothing to happen, because all of us have hurt ourselves now. I mean, we do things that cause harm unintentionally, right? And when do you think we got to this point that they have to be this like almost bubble wrapped person that, again, I'm not a proponent of falls. I hate falls, but I also not a proponent of just having someone sit there because we're afraid of a fall.
Right. So there's this line of how much paternalizing are we going to do? So these are adults. Right. We want to keep them safe and we want to keep them healthy. But where is that autonomy? Like, where's the choice in life? Because we all take risks in our daily lives. Like, I just went to Target today. That's a risk. But yeah. We have
getting in your car is a risk, though. Getting in your car is a risk.
Right. Getting in your bathtub is a risk.
Right.
So what we're talking about a little bit is helicopter adult childing. And I mean, so from the adult child perspective, also our caregivers can be helicopter caregivers, just like helicopter parents. I was a helicopter parent. I definitely did a little bit of helicoptering with my father as he moved into assisted living, because I was worried about him. And it was my brothers who would get me out of that and say, you know what, dad needs to move. Let him move. And that was really... it was really eye-opening for me. So, I mean, I've certainly done all of the things that we have talked about. And I wonder, talking about, Francis, you said, where did that come from? When did we do that? I wonder, the helicopter parent idea, that began to happen at a certain generation. And I wonder if it's people like in my generation that are starting to do the same with their own parents. I'm not sure, but I think it's something we need to think about.
I would think it's on top of that. It's not just the kids, but it's the corporations that are lawsuit weary.
Yes.
And that's got to be another part of it.
I think it's a big part of that. Because I hate medications. I hate psychotropics. I feel that we need to solve the problem. It's either our approach, it's our environment, it's our nutrition, it's our education, it's how we engage them. That needs to be looked at before we go right to, we're going to up whatever, X, Y, or Z psychotropic because we need them to not do whatever. But let's get to the upstream. Let's go upstream. Why are they doing this? Are they trying to express something verbally, non-verbally? Is there a pattern that they used to do growing up that we need to fill or encourage them to do? Let's get outside of our own way and actually listen through the different cues besides verbal cues that our residents are giving us.
Right. That's so true. And you had an interview with Stephanie Erickson the other day. I was cheering because I was like, there also the other side of that is, what we're saying is have some insight, some introspection about why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And older adults have the same needs anybody else does. And people living with dementia have the same needs anybody else does. So why aren't we offering these choices and these opportunities for expression? And so if we really sit back and analyze it, it really is about us, right? And like you said, you hit the nail on the head. We don't want to be sued, and we don't want to deal with difficult emotions because we're uncomfortable. Like, for instance, I study death. That's like my thing. And so we don't want to talk about it. For God's sake, don't talk about it. We might upset somebody.
Right.
Well, it's just not the case for everybody. So we really need to kind of look inward and say, well, why are we doing this? Why are we keeping people inside?
Yeah, and you're right. There's a little bit of I don't know that ego is the right term, but there's a sense of pride. He's not going to fall on my watch. Not going to happen on my watch. And in fact, that goes so far as that having someone in assisted living, sometimes they'll say, nope, your father is a fall risk. You have to bring in home care, or one of your family members has to be here 24/7. Like, really? So we're paying $10,000 a month, and now we have to pay another $4,000 a month to have someone babysit him,
or $20,000, depending on how much you're doing it. Because there's some places that do 24/7 if they're a fall risk. That one-on-one care.
Yeah. So I think that the bubble wrap is needs to be popped and done appropriately.
Yes.
Right.
And well, but I love this. Try nature first. Try nature first. Let's see if that helps us get rid of some of this bubble wrap.
Right.
And I think it goes back to what we all do. We all go out of our front door more days than not, right? We do. And our front door is for most people is to the outside in some capacity, or the back patio or back deck porch, whatever, right? Why don't we have those same opportunities for those that are living in some type of long-term care residence?
Reforming agents. Love it. Yes, we are. We're all learning.
Right. So that's what senior living needs to catch up. Like, we can't keep doing this. We have to change. So.
That's perfect right there. That's it right there. Senior living has to catch up. It's time.
So I want to know from you, Michelle, what are some little action items that we can give our listeners that they can take away today to start small, right? To start small, and really begin to snowball this into an amazing reformation, right? Or disruption, however you want to term it.
Right. So, I mean, there's things we can all do. We can all get outside, number one, right? Start with yourself, because if you don't do it yourself, you're not going to be able to help other people do it. And then sometimes you have to force yourself because we're so busy. We're caught up in busyness, right? So get outside yourself. Take a few minutes, breathe, appreciate 1-2 little things outside, and really just hone in on those for a few minutes. Then people that you're caring for and living with, bring them with you. Little action steps. Follow Evergreen Minds, because this is what we are doing. We are on a mission to do, research within long-term care settings. And we also are kind of partnering up with some organizations around here for a Leave No Child Inside program, which is teens, 14 to 17.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, through the Cornell Cooperative Extension. And we're also partnering with Vassar College, because they have a 500-acre nature preserve and farm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so there's so many opportunities. So, bringing the older folks and the younger folks together outside, and just building these connections. It's
so Michelle, you're in New York. Are you going to be expanding Evergreen Minds into other states? I want it here in Colorado.
Oh, I do too. Well, our president is in California, Aaron Partridge, and we have a wonderful board members and board of directors, and a lot of them are in. One is in Montana, and another one's in California. 2 more are in California. So a lot of folks. I think I'm the only one. Like 3 of us here are actually in New York, but a lot of folks are out your way. So the hope is to grow nationwide and to offer certification training so that everybody can do this, because there are some mindful tools that anybody can learn. And that's our mission. We're going to do this.
Love it.
You are. You are doing it.
You are doing it. Yes. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. We will have you back again, I'm sure, because we'll want to follow what you're doing. And if people want to reach out to you and learn more about Evergreen Minds, how can they do that?
Sure. You can go to evergreenminds.org. And you can also feel free to email me at Molson. It's M like the beer. Everybody must know my last name, so I'm going to make it clear. MOLSON at evergreenminds.org.
Excellent. And we've got that in our show notes.
In our show notes.
We'll have links. And it's such a treat always to talk with you. And I love the purple. I love the purple in your hair. I love the purple in your glasses. I love the shirt. And go get them. We got your back.
Thanks y'all so much, and for everything you're doing.
Well, thank you.
And Ellen Bucciarelli says you're awesome, Michelle.
Thank you, Ellen, for tuning in. We appreciate it. And yeah, we thank Michelle for everything. And we're excited for where this is going to go.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right,
you.
talk to you soon.
Everyone have a great day.
Have a great day and great weekend.
Take care. Bye-bye.